The Silent Authority: How Influence Works in Rooms Where Nothing is Said. Part 1. The Architecture of Silence. Chapter 1. The First Rule: Center quietly. What happens the moment you cross the threshold of a room? The door closed behind him with a soft click. No one turned. No one needed to. His presence had already arrived before he did. He paused at the threshold, letting the energy of the room wash over him before he took a single step. This was a boardroom on the 42nd floor of a glass tower overlooking a city whose heart never slowed. But inside, something different ruled. Tension lived in the air. Egos pressed against one another. Voices clashed in restrained urgency. All of it moved too fast. Speed is the enemy of clarity. Noise is the enemy of authority. The wise center slowly. He did not announce himself. He did not clear his throat. He did not rush to become part of the noise. He stood still long enough for the edge of his presence to settle into the space, then walked with deliberate calm to his chair. He sat without a word. The shift was immediate. The loudest man in the room lowered his voice. The anxious woman paused mid-sentence. Someone inhaled slowly, as if remembering to breathe. Nothing had been said, yet the room had changed. This is the first lesson of silent influence. You center before you speak, often before you move. Presence precedes participation. Command precedes contribution. The moment you cross the threshold is the moment you set the terms of engagement. Most people step into a room from the outside world and bring the world with them. They arrive hurried, scattered, leaking emotion, unaware that their energy is contagious. They are influenced before they can influence. They surrender tactical ground before the meeting even begins. The silently powerful do the opposite. They center like a sealed environment, self-contained, undisturbed, unmoved. When you step into a room, three things are being measured instantly: your emotional temperature, your pace, and your intention. Not by the conscious mind, but by the instinctual one. Humans are animals before they are anything else. We detect threat long before we detect meaning. We read presence long before we read speech. The nervous system interprets movement, tension, pace, and breath in microseconds. In these microseconds, hierarchies begin forming silently. To center quietly is to seize that moment. Consider the architecture of arrival. Powerful people do not burst through doors. They allow the room to register them gradually. They do not radiate insecurity through hurried movements. They do not announce unnecessary enthusiasm. They do not compensate for invisibility by being loud. Their silence is deliberate. Their pace is controlled. Their presence is precise. When you center quietly, you force others to slow down. This is not theatrical. It is biological. Groups unconsciously synchronize to the calmest nervous system present. It is the principle of atmospheric dominance. Whoever controls the internal tempo becomes the gravitational center around which others adjust. If you arrive already slowed, already calm, already observing, you create an anchor point in the room. Others, instinctively, fall into orbit. The man who centered that boardroom understood this. He knew the meeting had begun long before anyone realized. He knew influence starts not with attention, but with contrast. When a room is noisy, the quietest person becomes the most noticeable. When a room is fast, the slowest person becomes the most powerful. When a room is filled with motion, stillness becomes magnetic. Most people mistake centering quietly for timidity. They think influence requires volume. They think it requires declaration. They think it requires presence to be proven. But influence is not proven. It is perceived. And perception is shaped long before words are spoken. The first rule is simple: arrive with nothing leaking out of you. No anxiety, no urgency, no need for validation, no visible desperation to belong. When you cross a threshold, you are creating a silent contract with the room. You are the calmest person here, and therefore the most difficult to shake. That alone alters group dynamics. But centering quietly is not only about stillness, it is about awareness. Before you sit, you scan. Not with your eyes darting, not with visible curiosity, but with the peripheral sense of someone who has learned to read rooms the way others read language. Who is speaking too loudly? Who is sitting too rigidly? Who is dominating time? Who is shrinking? Who is masking insecurity with unnecessary emphasis? Who is avoiding eye contact? Who is performing confidence under strain? You observe all of this in seconds without physically signaling that you are observing. The quiet entry grants you this advantage. You are not yet participating, so your attention is unburdened. You see more because you have not begun playing the game. The person who speaks too early blinds himself to the field. He centers the conversation before he centers the room. Silent authority reverses this. You center the room first. The conversation comes later. The influence comes last. But by then, it is inevitable. When you sit silently at the beginning, you teach others how to interpret you. You show that you do not rush. You demonstrate that you do not overreact. You signal that you are comfortable not being the center. This removes you from competitive positioning and places you above it. Your stillness communicates something powerful. You cannot be provoked. You cannot be hurried. You cannot be pulled off balance. People fear what they cannot move. The loud often dominate the early minutes of any gathering. They push, fill, project. They believe movement equals advantage. But the wise know movement reveals more than silence ever will. Loudness exposes insecurity. Speed exposes fear. Over-participation exposes hunger. You reveal nothing. And because you reveal nothing, others reveal themselves. The room begins organizing around your calm. Not because you command it, but because you do not compete with it. This is the paradox of silent authority. You do less, and by doing less, you become more. Now the principle. The law of the quiet entry. Center every room with controlled pace, sealed emotion, and unhurried presence. Let others move first. Let the atmosphere bend toward you. The meeting begins before the talking begins. Take that ground. Own it quietly. The first rule is the simplest. It is also the one most people will never master, because it requires discipline, not performance. And discipline is rare. But for those who learn to center quietly, power begins long before speech. Influence begins long before negotiation. Authority begins long before anyone realizes they are obeying it. The threshold is your first battlefield. Cross it with silence, and the room will adjust to you.